everyone. Thanks a lot for taking the time. Thanks a lot for joining. My name is Oleg. I'm the founder of Extrovert Nurturing Tool, and I'm super excited for today's session because today we have a little bit different format. It will not be the slides, it will be just the interview where we extract all the knowledge from our guest. I hope so. So, everyone, please drop in the chat that everything is fine with the sound and with the picture, that you can see as well, you can hear as well. And I'm super excited to welcome my partner Stefan, that will be helping me in the chat, and also Finn, our guest today. And I'm super excited about this actually because Finn is the founder of Project 33, and he's building founder and executive LinkedIn programs for more, like, correct me if I'm wrong, more than 50 B2B tech companies.
Yeah, over
And
time, yeah.
you also host the Executive Brand podcast, which I think is super underrated. Me personally, I watch a lot of episodes on YouTube. It's more than 140 interviews with operators from different companies like Lemlist, Recall AI. And what I really love about Finn's work, that executive content isn't like just, for the sake of content. It's the part of the GTM infrastructure. The interviews come in, the LinkedIn content goes out, you have the ads on the site, you have engagement signals, and you kind of talk about this as the whole system. So I'm really excited to ask you some questions about that and extract some knowledge. But before we begin, can you please tell the audience a couple of words about yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I'm surprised Poco X8 Pro is a person apparently. I thought it was a bot, but he wrote or she wrote in the chat, so that's cool. About me, let's see. So I run Project 33, as you said. It's a LinkedIn agency for B2B executives. Started it now over 5 years ago, which is almost, I don't know, embarrassing to say, being in this space for such a long time. I got into it because I dropped out of university, didn't know what I wanted to do, and just started posting on all the platforms, Snapchat and Instagram. I started a daily YouTube vlog and all that stuff. And I was in New York uh, and meeting people, and LinkedIn was relatively early then. And so people told me, hey, this is interesting what you do there, and can you help me with my LinkedIn, and I'll pay you money for it. And that's how I started freelancing and then building that out, hiring people, building the agency, and then kind of growing from there.
Super cool, super cool. Before we jump into the actual stuff, and I want to say that I want to interview you about two things. So the first thing is, how do you run your playbook for your clients, like as an
Hmm.
agency, and
Yep.
also how you run your playbook for yourself, because I think it's kind of two different angles of the same story.
Sure.
But before we go into the whole LinkedIn stuff, your LinkedIn headline says, "We'll build a village next." Like, what's what is it about? And will anyone be able to post on social media in your village when you finish it?
How much time do you have? I'll try to give the short synopsis. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I hope that in 10 years I'm not running a LinkedIn agency anymore. I don't want that necessarily to be the legacy of my life. I think it's cool we get to work with CEOs and founders of really cool companies and learn a lot from them, but I don't know. I feel like there's long-term things where I can see myself contributing more. And the village is basically it's an amalgamation of many things, but I there's a book called Network State by Balaji, who used to be the CTO at Coinbase. He's very well known in the crypto space. And the book is basically about the idea that we should bring back entrepreneurship to country building. The reason why so many products and services exist in the world is because of competition. If you don't like any of the cars on the market, you can start a car company and try to build a better car. If you don't like any of the coffee shops in your neighborhood, you can open a coffee shop and try to make better coffee. But this doesn't exist for countries. There's a set amount of countries, the borders are drawn, you're born into one, you can move between countries via immigration. It's quite complicated and painful. Um, and there should be a path for people to bootstrap countries. And so the village is the first step. The small version of that is I just want to be neighbors with all of my best friends. So that's the MVP version of it.
Nice, nice, love it. But social media allowed or not?
Allowed or not? Yeah, allowed for sure. Though I do like the idea of something like a internet-free Sunday or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're from Germany, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anything pre Sunday is like a national sport, you know.
That's what we do here.
Okay, cool. So let's jump into it. And I can see the people are gathering. So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in. And please do be active in the chat. Please do share your questions, and I will monitor them and I will ask them either as they come or in the end, we will have also a short Q&A session. So the first thing, the first part of the talk, I want to talk about the client machine. Like, what do you
Yeah,
do for your clients, and how do you actually make the content to be a part of the pipeline machine?
yeah,
And the one thing I see in your content on LinkedIn is that sometimes you say that CEO or founder not always should be the face, you know, the one who posts. So
yeah,
can you please elaborate on that and say, um, like when it's the case and
yeah.
when it's not the case, because I heard that you worked with Safety Win and it was head of revenue who posted.
Hmm.
It was CMO in at Site Improve. So what is your actual checklist for choosing the face
Yeah.
of the company?
Yeah. So I'll answer that first and then I'll go into kind of how we approach things. So I think the first step is the person that you're going to work with to, amplify the LinkedIn and put out content on LinkedIn and build their brand on LinkedIn. They just want to do this. And some people just don't want to do it. They're skeptical. They hate LinkedIn. They hate putting out content. And so you can, what did they say? You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. And we've learned that definitely over and over again, where if a VP of marketing comes in and says, "Hey, we want to do this for our CEO," and they're great, and this would, but then the CEO is just not bought into it, and they think it's kind of stupid. It just never works. So the person needs to actually want to do this and be excited about it, to share their knowledge and their expertise and these things, because they also need to engage. They need to answer their comments and their messages and be active on LinkedIn. The second step is just they need to have relevant insights for the people that you sell into. And so the two examples that you mentioned there, Site Improve sells to marketing leaders. So, and the founder had left the company. So the founder wasn't with the company anymore. And so working with the CMO and sharing his insights was a much more natural step when their ICP is other CMOs. And then for Safety Wing, um, it's like a remote insurance product. So they mostly sell into founders, remote teams, HR. There's different personas, and I would have loved to work with the founder there. I think it would have made sense. But Lona specifically, who was head of revenue there, she her role didn't necessarily fit, but she was a nomad, digital nomad. So she was kind of like a power user of their own product. She was constantly traveling around and figuring out how to work in different environments. And so, in that sense, she had interesting content that was relevant to the kind of thing that they wanted to talk about. So, those are the different things. But I also believe actually as you go up market and as you sell into bigger and bigger companies and as the buying committees become larger and there's not just one person who's relevant for the buying decisions, but there's multiple stakeholders that you need to convince and involve. I think the broader you go there, the more it makes sense to have multiple and different people within your company also create content, right? Because in enterprise deals, there's always the CFO, there's always the head of legal, there's always procurement, there's always IT. And so I think if you have your own procurement leader, your own CFO, your own head of legal creating content, that's already great to just build relevant relationships with some of the, you know, blockers or influences on those deals, but then you still want your founder or your subject matter expert in there.
Super cool, super cool. And as far as I understood, correct me if I'm wrong, you recently moved upmarket and as an agency, and your approach, like having different avatars, different personas for different content pillars, make a lot of sense. But what would be your advice for smaller folks? Like if I'm a startup, like I don't know, 5 people,
Yeah.
3 people, would you rather like advise to force everyone in the company, everyone in the team create content, or just go all in into one persona?
I've just never seen it work where you force people. Like they need to raise their hand and say, I want to do this and I'm excited about it. And that can work. And even incentives, like people talk about gamifying this and having a leaderboard or giving people like rewards for it. I think it's nice if you do that. I've just seen and I've done 140 interviews with all kinds of different companies who have executive brand or thought leadership or EGC employee generated content programs, and the incentive is only a small factor. It's just people need to actually want to do this. So a small company, I think it generally should be the founder, and that's it. And then if
Okay,
you have your employees doing this on their own, then great, and then give them the resources and all of that. But yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Uh, can we also move to the extraction interview?
yeah,
And I think this is the most interesting part for me, especially for of your system. Um, because I would like to ask you not from the angle of the agency, but how people can replicate the same stuff in their own teams, like for
yeah,
themselves.
yeah,
Because as far as I understood, your whole machine starts with 1 hour interview. You do it every 1 or 2 weeks, if I
yeah.
understand
Usually
correctly.
2 weeks. Yeah,
2 weeks, okay. But this advice, like record your calls, transcribe your voice notes, like interview you and turn
yeah,
this into content. Like this advice is pretty, it's common.
yeah,
People, you can hear this a lot. You can see
yeah,
this
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot on LinkedIn. And maybe on the receiving side of this, I can like say that it doesn't always work. Like
Sure.
maybe my life is not so interesting. Maybe I don't have a lot of things to share, but this doesn't automatically work. You can't just automatically do this and expect the quality of content be good. So can you please give us maybe literal questions or literal angles that you do? How do you extract value from people that you work with?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, I mean, the first, there's 3 layers to our approach. The first layer is the recurring interview, which is how we extract the content that we then turn into LinkedIn posts and videos. I think you do basically run it as an internal podcast where the audience of that podcast is your ICP, right? And so the person who runs the interview and who interviews the CEO or the founder or the executive, they need to have context on the executive, they need to have context on your company, they need to have context on your ICP, what you sell into them, and kind of broadly your areas of expertise and what you can speak to, right? And then from that, I mean, in the end, it's the skill is running a good and interesting interview, which is what you're trying to do here. And you just want to think about, okay, what things does my guest know or might have a unique insight or point of view or expertise on that would then be relevant and interesting, not for me as the interviewer, which is usually what you do when you do a podcast, but rather for their ICP. So if they sell into heads of IT, what would they find interesting? Um, and and then I think there's a lot of that where you basically need to dig, right? Because oftentimes they might give the surface level answer and then you need to follow up and ask for examples or specific use cases or specific numbers that would back up the thing that they just said or something like that. Um, and I mean, it really depends. I don't know. Like there's some obvious ones where a customer of ours just acquired a company, and so we just interviewed the CEO about why they bought the company, what the vision is, and where they see the synergies going into their
Mhm.
customers over the next year or two as they're integrating the two products. And it's very straightforward question, but a lot of companies don't put this messaging out into the world, or they put it out into the world on some official press release and it's some corporate wording. But if you get the founder or CEO to share it in 2 minute bit, it's much more interesting and shareable across. And so I think one of the tools, let's say, that we often use in our interviews, because again, they are, for example, for my podcast that I run, the audience is B2B SaaS marketers. And I'm a B2B SaaS marketer. I know B2B SaaS marketers deeply. And so I can ask questions that I find interesting that I know will then also apply to the audience of the podcast, because I am the audience. But if we interview the CEO of a company that sells into supply chain, directors of supply chain at large manufacturing companies, which is one of the examples of companies we work with, it's like, I'm not that person, right? And so I think you often need to use tools like following up. Okay, tell me about the 3 biggest lessons you learned, about what matters for manufacturing companies in their supply chain right now when it comes to AI, whatever. This is probably not the greatest question to ask. And then they give the answer, and then you can follow up with something. What would a supply chain leader disagree with here? Because I don't know what they would disagree with, because I don't know them that deeply, but they should know because that's their ICP and their customers. So by kind of throwing it back at them and almost holding a mirror up and say, well, what would your ICP disagree here? Or where would they push back? Or which of the things that you just shared would someone like you in your audience most agree with or most disagree with? And that puts them in the headspace of, okay, I'm not talking to Finn, but I need to make my case for a supply chain leader or head of IT or CRO or whoever that ICP is.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I like that you mentioned that you also extract numbers because LinkedIn loves numbers, right? So
Yeah.
do you do it on the call? Like actually on the call, do you like just push them and say, give me the numbers? Or you
Yeah.
have some kind of follow-up process where you research things around their business, like after the call, like in an
As
email?
much as possible, we try to do it on the call. And then, I mean, sometimes there is where they say, oh, there's an industry report or there's a blog post that we recently published that has the numbers, and then they give us that as context when we create the piece. And sometimes we create it in a Google Doc. We have the LinkedIn post written, and then we notice, okay, it would be great to have something here, the number or the stat or the example, and then we just tag them on the Google document and say, hey, can you provide the numbers here?
Okay, okay. Do you do the same process? Do you follow the same process in your own team? Like, do you have actually like a person interviewing you, or
No.
have you watched it?
So I struggled with this for a long time because my process is different. I write all of my posts myself. So I'm not being interviewed and that creates it and then gets out. Um, so I struggled with that for a long time. The way that I think about it is I am not my ICP. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm a founder. We're a super tiny company. I live and breathe LinkedIn every day. So I need to be in the trenches every day to figure out what works and what doesn't because it constantly changes. Right. And so by me being in there and having to write them myself and putting them, that's how I learn, which then gets fed back into our system to improve it. The other thing is, I mean, I spent I spend at least an hour per day on LinkedIn. On some days, I spend 3 or 4 hours a day on LinkedIn, right? Between everything and writing my post and engaging and the podcast. And that's not our ICP. Our ICP is the opposite end where they're the CEO of a 500 people company and they need to do this with half an hour a week or an hour a week. And so that means the distribution of results isn't there. They're not going to be in the top 0.1% of creators on LinkedIn. So it's almost like the 80/20 of my own approach.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's very difficult to I know what you mean. It's very difficult to distinguish between like what you think and what your ICP thinks and kind of, go around this. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And can we move out? Can we move on to actually engagement metrics? Because I've seen your take that you said that 30 like posts can outsell 3,000 like posts if you optimize for not engagement, but you optimize for actual value to your ICP and talking to your ICP. And I would really love to agree with that because that gives me hope. In social media, it gives me more hope. But what if I'm a founder? I do a post. This post gets 5 likes, 10 likes, and I think it flopped, right?
Yeah.
So, can you talk to me and walk me through how you would evaluate the post? Did it really flop, or like you can call it a win? Like, what is the criteria?
I mean, I think 5 likes is hard to argue that it didn't flop. I would say what we look at is the more engagement, the better, but from the right people, right? So I would rather have a post if you sell into if you sell into, let me pick an example, CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, right? And you get a post that has, I don't know, 30 likes overall, but 7 of those are CISOs. I would rather take that than a post that has 60 likes, which is more than double in total, but there's 1 or 2 CISOs in there. So that's the distinction. It's not that low numbers of engagements are good or high necessarily means bad. It's just you got to compare. You want the highest possible engagement from the right people. And I think where people where people still go wrong, and we try to automate as much as possible of this for customers, is that there's this distinction between we're doing content and inbound, and then we're doing outbound and email and cold outreach to people. And really what you should do is combine the two. If you put out something and it gets 10 likes, which might make you disappointed and sad, but look at the 10 people. Are those 10 people just your own friends and employees? Then I would agree. Yeah, that doesn't help you with anything. But maybe 8 of those are your own employees and friends, but 2 of them are actual prospects. And so reach out to those 2. You
Yeah,
know, I had Emir Atli on my podcast a while ago, who's the co-founder and CRO at Hockey Stack. And he's doing pretty well on LinkedIn now, if you see. But we talked about his early days when he started posting, and he started posting. I think he was posting once a day, like 5 or 7 times a week. And he was like, in the beginning, he got 5 to 10 likes. But what he did was, instead of getting demotivated, being like, oh man, no one cares about me and I only have 5 to 10 likes, he would just, with every single post, look at the 5 to 10 people who liked. And then every time there would be 1 or 2 relevant people in there who would match their ICP. And then he would reach out to those people, right? And try to start a conversation and say, hey, we're building this. Can I show it to you? And that's how we booked a lot of demos in the early days. And so it's more like the hustle, you know?
yeah. How would you go about the fact that very often ICP is lurkers? So your engagement is actually skewed towards people who are active on LinkedIn. Me and you who spend
Yeah.
two hours on LinkedIn are naturally like more eager engagers with other people's content. But if I sell into mid-market or enterprise, they just naturally would not engage. And how do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons. So the problem is even that the higher up you go in terms of who you sell into, the more senior the people, the less likely they are to engage. Like the people who are happy to engage and write comments are usually junior people or founders. Founders like to engage too. But if you're a CISO at a large company, like you're actually disincentivized to go around and writing tons of comments and likes on people, right? Now, is that an excuse? Not necessarily, because I think you should still see signals, because there's still a subsegment of those people who will engage. And so if you don't see anyone engaging, that's a problem. But I think it's also like I noticed this pattern with clients where, on the one hand, obviously, we try to do reporting and we try to show as much as possible and look at the data and point towards like, hey, look, there's influence pipeline, there's relevant ICPs engaging with your content and all of that. But the companies who've done well, who've done best, and this is both across clients and across people who I've interviewed on the podcast, they're not in there trying to look for the most granular attribution. And they do it because they believe that this makes sense. They know their customers. They talk to their customers. From those conversations, they know that their customers spend time on LinkedIn. And so they know that they probably should be on LinkedIn. And as long as they put out relevant and interesting things for that type of person, and as long as they see at least some of them engaging, they know they're doing something worthwhile. And usually you then also get qualitative signals like people coming up at a conference or event and saying, hey, saw your video, or you just need to ask people, right? There's the self-reported attribution people talk about. Like there's other more qualitative ways to find out if what you're doing has an impact.
Yeah. Yeah, attribution is a difficult topic. Everyone, a lot of people like believe that attribution is dead, but if we shift a little bit from attribution to just action on intent signals,
Yeah.
like combining your content with your outreach, do you have a specific baseline? What does intent look like? If they liked your post, is it now can should we do the outreach now, or should we be a little bit more like can we just send them a connect request and pitch them? Or where is this? Do you track the signals in
Yeah.
your systems, and what is the level of signals that you can say like, oh, this is the intent we can actually reach out?
Yeah. So we track it for every customer. We have a clay table that we build for every customer where we pull in both people signals and company signals. The people signals we get from the organic content using Jungler, and the company signals we get from the thought leader ads that we're running using Fibbler. We push all of that into a clay table. In that clay table, we collect every company and person who've engaged with their content over time. If we have multiple executives, we pull in all of the engagement across all of those executives into one table. We then remove duplicates and basically count how many times each person engaged. We are building a history log across companies. So, if you sell into, I don't know, Google, we can see in our dashboard, okay, you have 7 different people at Google engaged with your executive's content 15 times over the last 30 days. And here's all the different touch points. They liked this post on this date. They commented on that post on that date with that comment. And so what we're doing with those things is a couple things. One, we do not automate any LinkedIn outreach or connection requests, and we don't recommend it to customers because it is against terms of service. So you need to be very careful and and make your own decision. But the very minimum that we do is, first of all, anytime an ICP engages with any of the content, we push that into a shared Slack channel we have with a client, and then we basically tell them connect with them. Like that's the very minimum, right? Like if you sell into CISOs and a CISO engaged with your CEO's post, they should get a connection request from your CEO. And that can be just a connection request. It can be just a simple message, whatever, saw you on my post, like, hey, we work with similar companies, whatever fits the style of your CEO, right? It just needs to feel real and authentic and all of those things. The second thing that we do, because most of our customers are mid-market, they're bigger, is we push all of that information into their CRM, which is usually HubSpot or Salesforce, and then there they score. We have our own scoring with like the amounts of times a company liked a post, but usually a company at that stage already has their own internal scoring mechanism where they look at website visits and did they attend our webinar, and did they come by our booth at our conference, and they basically collect all of these touch points to score. And it's just one additional signal to score your TAM and to say, oh, this account, who is a target account, is hot right now because they attended our webinar, they visited us at our booth, and they liked 7 posts of our CEO in the last 90 days. So it's an additional signal, and then that should trigger at some point, and different companies have different thresholds to then have an SDR or BDR prioritize that account, work them, reach out, stuff like that.
How do you feel about account level intent? Like if just random people from the account engage with your say whatever, and this is just one person, but they are outside of the buying committee. Like, is it actually a thing? Does it actually meaningfully represent the intent on the account based level?
I mean, it's better than nothing. It's worse than you know for sure that it was the CISO who engaged versus someone at whatever Google. For us, because the only way that we get company level signals from our process is when we run thought leader ads. And when we run thought leader ads, we obviously always put targeting in there. So we work with their ABM or target account list. And then we only target job titles that they tell us are relevant, either because they're the economic buyer or the influencer or the champion. And so if we get a touch point from someone at that company, we don't know whether it was the CTO or the VP of engineering or the director of DevOps, but we know it was one of them and not some random intern.
Okay, so you're just making an assumption, basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
that okay, that does make sense. And actually, I think it's a good bridge to your recent post. I think you posted a while ago that you had a wish list for LinkedIn CPO.
The new CPO, yeah.
Yeah, and
Pretty sure you did not see that
it said
post.
that uh, ad manager, sales nav, and
Yeah.
organic talk should
Yeah.
talk to each other. Could you
Yeah.
please elaborate what is the problem that you see? And do you have any specific workaround that you built for you, for your clients?
Yeah.
Like, how do you combine all those things?
Oh man, where do I start? I mean, it's anyone who uses LinkedIn a lot and you use everything that kind of LinkedIn has to offer. So obviously there's the organic side, you're posting content through your own profile, you're posting content maybe through your company page. Then there's Sales Navigator, which mostly salespeople use. And then there's obviously the ad manager where marketing teams run their ads. Those are 3 separate silos on LinkedIn right now that barely talk to each other, which is absolutely stupid because it's one platform and LinkedIn should just basically connect those two. For example, you can build a list in Sales Navigator using LinkedIn's filtering, right? I can say, give me all of the people who are a CTO at a financial services company with at least 1,000 employees in the US. It spits out a list of, let's say, 1,000 people. Great. I want to now just target these people with an ad. I can't do that right now. You can then scrape Sales Navigator and then get a CSV and then upload that CSV to your ad manager, and then you get a 70% match rate. I want to just click a button and push those 1,000 profiles that I can review into ad manager so that I can now run ads towards these exact 1,000 people. You can't do that right now. You can't also, for example, if we put out a lot of organic content, obviously, for customers. Let's say we're posting a post from a CEO's profile. That post does really well. We get 300 likes on that post. And now I want to just say, okay, let's retarget these people with our LinkedIn ads to make sure that they see our case studies or white paper or whatever. I can't do that right now. So those are just some examples. And so I would be paying LinkedIn a lot of money if they just said, look, we combined all of those things. Here's the LinkedIn, I don't know, Signal platform or the LinkedIn. I would give them a lot of money, but yeah.
That's cool. But on the other hand, if they would do that, us LinkedIn tools folks would be, even would be in the worst position.
Some,
Maybe,
I
maybe.
mean, some, not all of them. Sure, some LinkedIn tools are the workaround for some of those things. But I'm pretty sure that's not the reason why LinkedIn is not doing it. It's not because they're like, oh, we love this ecosystem of third-party apps around LinkedIn, and that's why we're not doing it.
Yeah, that's safe to say. I think it's not the reason. But what is your actual workflow? Like, how do you combine those things? Do you
Yeah,
have like what do you use? Do you use Clay? What do
yeah.
you use for retargeting
So
for content level engagement? And
Yeah, so organic content, we use a tool called Ordinal, which is a scheduling tool. So all of the content once approved, we schedule it through there. We then run thought leader ads in their LinkedIn ad account using the best performing organic posts that we have. So that's just using the ad manager. We usually retarget with conversation ads because we see the best results there. And then we use a tool called Jungler, I think jungler.ai, to pull in organic post engagers. They have an API or they have an API. We connect that to Clay. So that pushes all the people into Clay. And then in Clay, we enrich and qualify and filter. And then Clay does the push into Slack or push into CRM. It acts as the kind of platform to wire everything together. We use a tool called Fibbler to basically analyze the performance on the ad side on influence revenue, as well as see or push the companies who are most engaged on the ad side into Clay. For reporting on the kind of organic thing, we just built that in HubSpot or inside of the customer CRM. So like it's just, it's like different tools, and there's workarounds for certain things, and you can stitch some things together, but there's still gaps, and I wish LinkedIn was just.
yeah, that's a solid stack, I want to say. And do you use anything to drive up this match rate when you push when you push your audience to organic ads? Thought leader ads. Do you use just native ads manager, or you use something on top of it to increase the match rate?
Uh, we work with customers to build their target account list, and usually what they send us, oh my God. First of all, the amount of companies who do not have a target account list is insane. Even mature companies that are doing 10, 20, 50 million in ARR, you would be surprised. So sometimes we create it for them. Sometimes we enrich it if they give us just like a simple HubSpot export and it's just a bunch of company names. And we do that enrichment inside of Clay. And the main identifier for match rate on LinkedIn is LinkedIn URL. So either company page URL or profile URL. And Clay has an enrichment for that. So that's the main enrichment you need to run to get a good match rate.
Okay, makes sense. And are you comfortable of sharing some numbers about
Yeah, of
your
course.
ads like results? Like what is the actual like cost for the MQL, or like
Yeah.
how do you measure?
So I'll go into our ads first because someone just asked it in the chat. I can't see the chat right now. Um, but I think the last question was about our own ads.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
do run our own ads. We do it our own dog food. It's a small budget because we're a small company. Um, so basically, let's do all time right now. So the main campaign that we're running here right now is this, and it's a very simple ad campaign structure. I don't want to pretend like we're doing some dark magic here. There's a cold layer where we basically run my best performing organic posts. Here, some of my best performing organic posts as thought leader ads towards our target accounts, which is a very small list of basically 2,000 people. Because again, we don't have a lot of budget, so that's why it's a very small audience. And then we retarget with conversation ads here, which is very similar to the playbook that we run. And so basically, if I do both of these campaigns and I do breakdown by conversion, for example, you can see here that in the retargeting layer, which is where the conversions happen, you can see we got 10 conversions, click conversions, for a demo request. So this is actually someone who went to our website, went to our demo booking page and filled out the form and booked the demo. That's 10 people. So if you just divide I think, what was it, 9,000 something that we spend here in budget, divided by that number, we're spending about 1,000 euros per demo right now that is directly attributed through the ad platform. So this is the minimum threshold, right? And we know that I don't know the exact number. It's probably you can add 50% to 100% on top of that you don't track either because they have, uh, incognito mode, or they have other privacy settings with their browser, or because they don't have a click conversion, but they go to our website, they forward it to their colleague, and then the colleague books a demo. In B2B, there's different ways, but this is the minimum threshold that we've confirmed through Ad Manager attribution. And then probably my guess is like 50 to 100% on top of that, that is not perfectly attributed.
So about 450 euros per demo, right? This is your
Yeah,
number.
depending on how you calculate it, between 450 to 900.
Okay, okay. And what about your? I think it makes sense for your market. What about your other clients that sell like into different total addressable markets? How do you measure like whether this actually makes sense? I mean, do you have any heuristics like how do you make decisions on ads without waiting for super long time for the people to
Yeah.
convert?
I mean, you just test it, I wouldn't say it works for everyone, but but yeah, you just test it. Here's another. This is a client iPoint. They are a B2B SaaS company. They sell into basically heads of supply, heads of sustainability, and heads of compliance at large automotive manufacturers. So if you go to their website, BMW, McLaren, etc., are customers. And so we're running a very similar approach here. We have a cold thought leader campaign, and then we're running retargeting ads. And so just on breakdown conversions. So here you can see we have 5 tracked conversions on their ads. This is an 11K budget. So that's 2,000 per conversion. That's the minimum threshold, which is higher. For me, like the important number is just, is this profitable, right? Like, your ACV, or you should know what's your conversion rate from qualified demo to closed won. And so you just reverse engineer. If you sell a 100K deal and that percentage of deals, of opportunities convert into a deal, then you know how much you're willing to spend on a qualified demo. And so there is no good or bad number here. For some companies, it might be 500. For some companies, it might be 2,000. For some companies, it might be 5,000. But if you sell enterprise deals, 5,000 might be a great number. So it's really just like, are we profitable with this?
Yeah, just let the money talk. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Okay, let's switch topic for a little bit. Do you do any competitor research in terms of content? Like, do you follow your clients' competitors and like their
Yeah.
posts, their profiles? Do you have swipe files? Anything about that?
Yeah, I would say we went on different journeys there. So at first we kept it relatively simple. And we would of course ask them when a new company becomes a customer, they fill out an intake form, which is 30 questions or so. And obviously one of that questions is, who is your top competitor? The follow-up question is, what's your main differentiator for each of the competitors? So we have that information. Um, and then we went down at trying to make it really sophisticated, let's say, where we would spin up multiple agents and they would run research and they would come back with certain reports, and what we ended up coming back to is the right fit for what we do. They know this information inside and out. They know exactly who their customers are. They know exactly why they lose deals to them. They know exactly where the market is currently shifting, who's hot, who's not so hot, and where they stand in that relation. And if you have that, then you don't really need all of the sophisticated stuff. And if you don't have that, you providing that information as the agency, where you have to remind them, but wait, you have this competitor and they do this thing, right? It's just that's almost by definition there's a bigger problem there. And so it's very simple now. It's basically like we will ask them
And
questions
they know.
and they know.
And they know product-wise and positioning-wise or LinkedIn content-wise as well. I mean, it's different story, right? To know your competitors.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like the CEO of so yes, we look at that to some extent. We will always ask them one of the other questions in the intake form, who in their industry is already doing a good job with their LinkedIn, and if one of their direct competitors is doing well, they will share that. We'll look at that. Um, Sometimes if a competitor might say something and it does really well, we might bring that into an interview and say, hey, competitor said that. What's your reaction? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Where do you disagree? Stuff like that. So it's like one input into the content ideation, let's say. But I would say a surprising amount of our customers, I mean, we work with, like, for example, the company iPoint, they're a company that's been around for 20 years. They sell into large automotive manufacturers, mainly in DACH. And then there's some in broader Europe and there's some in the US, but it's mostly Germany, Austria, Switzerland. It's just there's not there's not many people talking to VPs of sustainability at these companies.
So you're basically the only one in your client is the only one who is
Yeah, and
direct.
it's on honestly, this is my favorite kind of company to work with because um like sometimes the pushback is like, well, we don't see many people in our space doing this whole LinkedIn founder brand executive, and you have more FOMO when you're talk to a MarTech or a sales tech company because everyone's on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's founder and mother is on LinkedIn in that space. So there's a lot of FOMO, but it also means that the opportunity is less, that it's already more crowded, that there are potentially already some established winners who have, 100,000 or more followers, and you're just competing against really, really strong competition. When you're like a hidden champion like that and you sell into IT leaders at manufacturing companies, it's like, man, any amount of content you put out there, you're just crushing.
Yeah. What would be your advice to smaller companies that are trying to run content agent in-house and that are in more crowded industries? Like maybe they are, I don't know, lead gen agency, or they are a tool founder, SaaS tool founder for sales tech. Like,
Yeah.
what would be your advice around their competitors? Should they engage with their competitors? Should they make a
Mm.
little buff, should they copy? What have you seen working?
I would say in general, I would just say the more competitive anything is, the more effort and work it takes to stand out. And so if you're in that space, just know that you'll have to put in a lot more work and effort and time and brain power and strategizing to make a dent versus if none of your competitors are active and it's kind of a, blue ocean. So I think that's like, as always with everything, people want to eat their cake and have it too, right? And it's like, if there's already 20 founders with a similar company to you who are crushing on LinkedIn, and then you think you can just show up and prompt Claude for 5 minutes and come up with a post that somehow goes viral and allows you to build a meaningful brand in 3 months, it's just like, that's not how the world works. So in that case, I would just, honestly, I would, man, it just also depends on company stage and everything. You just need to be aware where LinkedIn sits in your priority. Is it one of your top three priorities? Because that's where all of your customers are, where you believe is the biggest opportunity, and you're, at the stage of the company where distribution becomes important versus building the product or whatever. Then just put your money where your mouth is and block off 2 hours every day to make it your number one priority. And that then means during those 2 hours, you write your posts and you engage and you see what works and you study and you refine your posts and all of that stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. Speaking of prompting Claude, uh, sure that you heard they released a new model recently,
Yeah.
like yesterday. And just wanted to ask you, like, I heard your take a while ago about, either going all in with AI or
Yeah.
just going all in with the human approach and
Yeah.
nothing in between.
Yeah.
Like, have you tried the model? How does what does it mean for content creation right now? Is it actually better or can it ideate? Um, is it actually smart for content?
I don't know. I've played around with a little bit. From what I understood, it's strongest for really big, long tasks, which copywriting mostly isn't. Um, and so, from what I see right now, it doesn't seem to be like a massive jump. Maybe it's slightly better, but it also burns a lot more tokens, from what I understand. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't seem to be a game changer, for the content space.
Yeah, I've been running it for a while, and the pace, how it hits the tokens and the money is insane. It's like you're just
Have you
watching
seen a
this.
big difference in quality of output for different things?
Um, I would say that I'm very into agentic systems.
Yeah.
Recently, it's like my space of interest, and I'm building the agent for myself, like a personal assistant type of thing. And one of the issues that I had with it that it cannot brainstorm on its own. It's a really good, the rubber duck in disguise, where it just interviews you and kind of
Mm-hmm.
helps you do back and forth, but with other models. But with this new one, with Fable, for the first time, it actually produced reasonable ideas around. I was testing it about offers for cold email. We are launching a cold email campaign on one
Mm-hmm.
specific, target. We have one specific idea, and I was trying to refine the angles.
Mm-hmm.
And this task is not difficult. It's not coding, but what I got from all the models, like Opus, GPT 5.5, was just garbage. So just the
Mm-hmm.
ideas were like, they can't think. But this was actually like 4 out of 5. For real, it was.
So
It
would
is.
you say that's like twice as good or five times as good or 20% better?
It's just 0 to 1. I mean,
Yeah, fair enough.
previously I could do
You can use it
some
at all.
stuff that I knew how to do, like do
Mm-hmm.
this kind of work, do a research, compose an email for me.
Yeah.
Copywriting, not so much because I don't like the style.
Yeah.
Uh, but I couldn't ask it to brainstorm on its own. And now it seems it's too early to say. I'm just playing with it like for several hours, but it's promising. I mean, and it's scary because, thinking is what I'd like, hopefully, to keep to ourselves, but I don't know. It's definitely worth exploring,
Yeah.
but expensive. I mean, when you look at the numbers and you just can say like this task just cost me, $40. The actual like one granular chat. Uh, and then you kind of measure what would I pay for this to a person, like that I hire like a freelancer. Anyways, it's super interesting. So do you use AI in your workflow? Like, I assume you are, but
Yeah.
where do you draw the line? Like, what is the line that you say this where AI stops and we have human review, or like
Yeah,
how
yeah,
does it
yeah.
look like?
So we use AI for writing. The way we do it is so we have a human. They're our content directors, Toby and Jay, who work with our clients, and so they run the interview. They run the check-in calls. They set the strategy. They're inside of their ad account. All of those things. Um, We've spent quite some time building our own agent for copywriting, and it continuously. I mean, I have a call. I had a call this week, 3 hours, and next week I have a 3 hour call to further work on it. It's basically built in N8N. It calls different models for different steps of the process. We vibe coded our own interface to basically interact and work with it. And I mean, we've gone through many inter iterations, and you learn things along the way. I think what's important if you're building this is a couple things. One, you still need obviously a person in the loop and who does the review. And so in our case, that's the content director. They have all the context on the customer and their ICP and the product. They run the interview. They basically then assign those copies to our N8N agent, and they get the output, they edit it, they review it, they might send it back to the agent, and they are the person who sends it back to the client. So there's always a human who's accountable to the output. Which is similar how we used to run it in the past, where we had a ghostwriter, where then the content director would assign something to ghostwriter. The ghostwriter would send something back to the content director, and then they would send it to the client. You need to understand what you're looking for. I mean, I think everyone has made that experience. You can't. First of all, you need raw input with signal, and that to us are the interviews. Right? What we do not do and never do, and what you would want to do if you want to create slop, is basically just go into Claude or ChatGPT and just say, write me an interesting post that a head of supply chain would find interesting. That's slop, right? But we
Yeah.
interview someone who's from the industry, who does things, who has insights and opinions. And then that's the core that then gets just packaged into a LinkedIn post. So you need that signal somewhere. That's the interview. And then you just need to know what you're looking for with the post. It's almost like training ghostwriters. I mean, when we had ghostwriters in the past, I would spend a ton of time training them, because I think anyone who ever hired a freelance writer, even if they're a senior writer, and we had great writers, just thinking that you can just throw an interview at them and tell them make a good LinkedIn post out of it, it never works. So you need to be very specific with them about, here's what I'm looking for, here's what good looks like for us, here's how we structure our hooks, here's how we structure our post, here's what should always be included in the post. Make sure you highlight this and don't highlight that. Stuff like that. And the same is true for agents. What we've also learned is that you can't outsource the decision making to the agent. So in a similar way, how when you work with a ghostwriter and you need to write a good brief for them, and you need to put thinking into writing a good brief, right? You need to actually think about, okay, I had this interview, the customer said this, what am I trying to get out of it? How do I want to position the angle? What do I think a good hook would be like for this post? What do I want them to include from what we covered versus what is maybe off the record, or I don't want them to include because it's just repetitive? All of those things that you need to think about as the content director when you assign a piece to a writer, you need to do all of that same work when you assign work to an agent. And turns out then you actually get great output that is not slop. What produces slop is, again, if you don't have that core of insight from an actual interview and you just ask it to come up with something interesting,
Yeah.
or if you don't give it guidance and you just say, here's a 10-minute timestamp from an interview, make a good LinkedIn post out of it. It's never good. And so you need to have an actual human who thinks about the angle and the hook and how to position it. And then with that input, an agent can produce really good results.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. This was fantastic, and thanks a lot for sharing all this. One last
Sorry, just
question.
one thing that I just thought of
Yeah.
that might be interesting for people. Like, and then you just got to look at the outputs. And so, like, one little mini nugget is never tell your LLM to write a LinkedIn post,
Uh,
because
because
that
it
always
triggers
comes with
some weird.
preconceptions, and
Yeah.
it will make it a basically Justin Welsh type post. And so for us, what we found works best is to tell it to write a mini essay,
Oh.
because that it produces a much better outcome because it doesn't come with these preconceived notions of you got to have lots of line breaks and emojis in there and stuff like that. And it just creates something that's more high quality and sounds more like an actual person rather than this, yeah, LinkedIn slop.
So you're kind of tricking it to live in an imaginary world, for you to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you just prompt Claude, in our case, it doesn't do it because we built our own interface. But if you just do it directly in Claude's interface, it will always ask the follow-up question,
yeah,
right? Because it now asks follow-up questions to say, what platform are we writing this for? And you
yeah.
you need to skip that question because if you tell it we're writing it for LinkedIn, you will get worse output.
That's cool. I never actually tried this. I will try this. So the last question for you, and super specific, like if if a founder of a small company want to build an MVP version of your system, what is the like a checklist that they can apply next week? What is the minimum things that they need to implement?
Post at least twice a week on LinkedIn, probably more like 3 times. Block time for it. Some people do well in batching that. They block off 4 hours once a week and they just write 3 posts in that time, or they record 3 videos in that time. Some people do best in doing it, blocking off 3 different days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and having a 1 hour block. And in that 1 hour block, you write your thing for the day or you record your video for the day. Spend time actually creating it. Like think about what you're saying and is it interesting and why would your customer or ICP want to read this? And then be active on the platform. I would say at least 30 days, 30 minutes every day, engaging, writing comments, answering your comments, answering your DMs. And then if you have ad budget, run thought leader ads towards a narrow list of target accounts. I think that's almost a no-brainer. And then 3, it's basically what we do: connect something like Jungler or Fibbler and pull it into a clay table and use it to get notified when a new ICP either engages or hits a certain threshold, and then do the outbound, connect with them, send them a message, try to invite them to an event, like work those people. Don't just hope that the CISO will just book a demo on your website.
Yeah, we are on time, but it's super interesting. So if you have another 2 minutes, we have one more question.
Sure.
Say you've been working with the client for 4 months and 15 posts did super well. How would you approach to iterating on the successful content? Like, would you just, go all into those posts, or how would you go about it? What is the
Fifth.
split in your overall content? Like exploring new ideas and doubling down on the ones that already worked before.
Yeah, so we have an internal definition of an outlier, which is just a post that did really well relative to their average. We repost those every 3 months. If they're evergreen.
Just verbatim, word for word.
If they're evergreen verbatim, if they're obviously like a funding announcement or something like that, then you cannot repost it. We will always ask the customer if they have, a change to it or an addition to it, and then sometimes we might make amendments if they learn something on top of what they talk about. And then, yeah, reuse the topics, do follow-ups, and then basically milk it until it doesn't work anymore. Like if we repost something 3 months later that did well, and then it does well again, then we'll repurpose it again 3 months later and again
Oh,
3 months later until basically it doesn't outperform anymore and it's just an average post, then we will stop. And so I think, yeah, if you have 15 posts that did super well, I think, first of all, I think you're doing incredible if in 4 months you have 15 posts that did super well. Yeah, like reuse those, repurpose those, create follow-up posts. Like you still need to put it into the broader context, right? If all of those 15 posts that did really well are like a selfie with their dog, I don't know, like you don't want to do that too often. But if it's around something relevant to their industry and it ties into the product or service that they're selling, then hell yeah, just create iterations around it.
Super cool. Super cool. This was fantastic. And everyone who wants more of this, Finn's actually running the podcast, the executive brand, more than 140 interviews. Go and check it out on YouTube. It's really super underrated and a lot of cool stuff in there. Also, a newsletter at executivebrand.org. So very dense resource on the topic. So go ahead and check it out. Also add him on LinkedIn. And also, Finn, who should actually reach out to you Project 33 wise? Like, who is the right fit for you guys?
I would say B2B companies who sell into mid-market or enterprise. So you sell into senior decision makers. Um, you're doing, I would say, at least 5 million in revenue. So there is an ad budget. You have executives at your company. Um, and where you just know your executives are open to it, but they're not going to do it themselves. Like, for example, one of our customers, he's the CEO, Tony Scott, he's the CEO at Intrusion, which is a publicly traded cybersecurity company. He was previously CIO at Microsoft. He's in his 60s. This is not shots at him. He's incredible and we learned so much from him, but he's
Yeah.
never, ever anymore going to sit down and type up his own LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
And so, but he's totally open to do interviews and talk about what he's learning and what he's seeing in the space, etc. So like that's a good use case to hire us when it makes sense, but you know your executive is just not going to do it themselves. Because if they are going to do it themselves and they are willing and able to write their own LinkedIn post, I'll be the first person to say that's even better. It's just like the reality of things is that sometimes your CEO is just it's just not happening.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you're not yet there, just check out Finn's content. It's really good. It's really deep. And I really appreciate you putting it out there. One last thing from my side, a lot of things that you mentioned, like building relationships on LinkedIn and being active, is the reason why we built Extrovert, our tool for nurturing, for relationship building. So for everyone who is watching the replay or here, if you haven't tried it, check it out. We have a 50% off the first month. Just use the code personal brand. We will send it over with slides. Sorry, we have no slides today, with the recording. And yeah, thanks a lot for spending the time. Have a great rest of the week. Finn, thanks a lot for a great talk.
Thank you.
And talk soon. Thanks a lot. Have a good
Thank
one.
you, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.